Hello everyone, it's Mr. Colley from Dudley Performing Arts here. Today I'm going to introduce you to a spring warm-up which is called Cheeky Charlie Chick. Have a listen. Cheeky Charlie Chick is chirping cheerfully. Cheeky Charlie Chick is chirping cheerfully. Cheeky Charlie Chip is chirping cheerfully. Cheep, 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 chirps Cheeky Charlie Chick. Cheep, 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 cheep. Cheeky Charlie Chick. If it goes up each time in key. I'm just going to go through this warm-up with you once, and then I'd like you to just have a go with it with the guide vocal and the backing track which I'm going to add on to this video. Let's go through the warm-up so you've got the tune. Cheeky Charlie Chick is chirping cheerfully. Your turn. Cheeky Charlie Chick is chirping cheerfully. Cheeky Charlie Chick is chirping cheerfully. Cheep, 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 chirps Cheeky Charlie Chick. Cheep, 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 cheep. As you progress to singing this warm-up in full, please take extra care as the speed increases. You'll find this out when you try it with the guide vocal. As the speed increases, make sure that the rhythm doesn't become sloppy. It's tempting to open the mouth less when it gets faster, but actually it's much easier to sing at speed and in time if you continue to exaggerate the mouth's movements and pronounce the consonants strongly. This is a great warm-up for diction and waking the mouths and brains up. Before singing, try just reciting and reading the lyrics out loud, exaggerating the movement of the mouth and using the quick ch sounds. Your mouth should ache by the end of it. Make sure you're using your tummy muscles to support those octave leaps in this song. You might want to take some time doing some ch exercises like this. Ch, 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 ch. You'll find that your tummy muscles engage when you do this, and it's a good way of practicing for this warm-up. Okay, have a go with the sing-along version and the backing track.
Cheeky Charlie Chick is chirping cheerfully. Cheeky Charlie Chick is chirping cheerfully. Cheeky Charlie Chick is chirping cheerfully. Cheep, 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 chirps Cheeky Charlie Chick. Cheep, 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 cheep.